A lot of foreigners leave Thailand saying that they are done. They've had enough of the heat, the visa rules, the relationships, the money problems, the traffic, or whatever finally pushed them over the edge. Some leave quietly, others leave very angry and tell everybody Thailand is a horrible place and they'll never set foot here again. Then, a few months later, they're sitting back in America, England, Australia, or somewhere in Europe looking at airline tickets to Bangkok. That raises a fair question, you guys. If Thailand was really that bad, why do so many of them come back? I don't think most of them return because they suddenly decide Thailand is perfect. People return because once the anger wears off, they begin comparing the life they have now with the life they left behind. They start realizing they may have left a bad relationship, a bad financial situation, or made some bad decisions. But that doesn't necessarily mean the whole country was bad. Today I want to talk about what happens after they leave, what they discover when they get back home, and why some return to Thailand smarter while others come back and repeat the same mistakes all over again. At first, leaving can feel like a relief. When somebody finally leaves Thailand after months or years of frustration, the first feeling may be relief. Everything back home is familiar. They understand the language. They know how the banks work, the roads work, the paperwork works. And when people mean and what people mean when they speak, they language, they understand it. Nobody's asking them to explain themselves across two cultures. They're not sweating through their shirt while trying to solve some simple problem that somehow turned into an all-day job. And that does happen, you guys. They may stay with family or move back into a familiar house. They see old friends. They eat food they've missed. They go into a store and know exactly where everything is. They can turn on the television and they understand every single word without concentrating. After a difficult period in Thailand, that can feel like peace. But relief and happiness are not always the same thing. Once the first few weeks pass, ordinary life once again begins. The welcome home conversations become less frequent. Friends go back to their jobs and families. The person is no longer the one who just returned from Thailand with all his stories to tell. He's simply back home, and now he has to figure out what his life there is actually going to look like. That's often when the comparison begins. Before I get too far into this, I have the Thailand Reality Guide, the Thailand Cost Calculator, and the complete bundle at ricksadventurestv.com. I also offer one-on-one consulting for people trying to decide whether moving here or returning here actually makes sense for their finances and given situation. None of it is designed to sell a dream. It's meant to help people avoid making emotional decisions that cost them later. Home may be familiar, but it's not the same home they left. A person can leave his home country for several years and imagine he can return to the exact same life he had before. Usually this doesn't work this way. The country may look familiar, but his place in it's changed. Friends have moved, some have become sick, some have passed away, children are older and have their own lives. The neighborhood has changed, prices have changed, the person himself has changed. He may have spent years living in Thailand where he was active every day, even if the activity was something simple. Going to the market, riding a motorcycle, stopping for coffee, helping around the property, visiting family, or taking a trip somewhere. It gave the day some movement. Back home, he might find himself sitting inside much more than he ever expected. And this is especially true for retirees. When you're younger, your work often provides your schedule and your social network, and it's a part of your identity. After retirement, you have to build those things for yourself. Some people can do that really well. Others discover that without the work, without the life they had in Thailand, the days begin to run together. They may have a nicer television, better roads, more organized services, and every convenience they thought they missed. But they're still alone in the house, and that's the part that nobody puts in a cost of living comparison. A person can be surrounded by everything familiar and still feel completely disconnected from his own life. You miss the daily life more than the vacation part. When people talk about missing Thailand, everybody assumes they mean beaches, nightlife, young women, cheap beer, and some kind of permanent holiday. For some people, maybe that is true, but I think many long-term foreigners miss the ordinary things more than the tourist things. I know I do. They miss being able to step outside and find food without making a plan. They miss the markets, the roadside shops, the people sitting outside, the motorcycles going by, and the feeling that life is happening around you. They miss the warm evenings when they can sit outdoors instead of being shut up inside because it's cold, dark, or raining for weeks. They miss the convenience of a Thailand daily life. Even in rural Assam where we live, there's usually somebody stopping by, something happening at the house, a job that needs doing, a meal being prepared, or somewhere nearby to go ride on the motorcycle. It's not exciting every minute, and I wouldn't want it to be, but there's a rhythm to life here that many people don't realize they valued until they lose it. Back home, you may discover that everything requires more planning and more money. A simple meal out costs more. A short trip means getting in the car and driving farther. Services that, once considered ordinary are expensive. Property taxes, insurance, utility, fuel, repairs, all the medical costs. It takes a larger part of your monthly income. Thailand is not as cheap as people sometimes claim, and a person can spend a lot of money here if you're careless. But many retirees still feel they receive more for life for the money they spend. And this is what they miss, not just lower prices. They miss feeling like their retirement income allows them to participate in life rather than merely maintain it. It's a much better quality of life. They miss the person they were in Thailand. This may be one of the biggest reasons people come back, and it doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think. Sometimes a person does not only miss Thailand, he or she misses who they were when they were here. Back home, they may be seen as an older retired man or woman, no longer running a department, building a business, working on project, or being asked for, your experience. You may still have skills, knowledge, and energy, but there's no obvious place to use them. In Thailand, you may have been building a house, helping on a farm, learning a language, making videos, riding motorcycles, starting a small business, or just becoming part of the community. You had plans. You woke up with a reason to get moving. Now, there's a bad side to this, too. Some people become addicted to attention. They like feeling important because people believe they have money. They confuse being needed financially with being loved personally. That can lead to terrible decisions, you guys. But there is also a healthy version. A man may simply feel useful again. He may enjoy helping his wife, working on the property, learning how things are done differently in Thailand, or becoming part of something larger than just yourself. When you return home, you may realize that you lost what was not only the weather or the food, you lost your purpose. You can live in a country with every modern convenience and still feel like you're waiting for the end of the story. Thailand may have made you feel more like the story was still being written day by day. Time can soften bad memories. Memory is not always honest. When someone is frustrated in Thailand, you remember your home country is efficient, safe, clean, organized, and easy. You may remember everything that works well, and you may forget why you left in the first place. Then you get home and you start remembering Thailand as warm, inexpensive, friendly, exciting, and free. You'll remember the best meals, the beautiful places, the motorcycle rides, the good days with your wife and friends. You forget about the visa runs, the misunderstandings, the mosquitoes, the heat, and the paperwork, the money arguments, and the days when nothing went as planned. We have a habit of comparing the best memory of one place with the worst day in the place where we currently live. That can be dangerous. That can be a very dangerous move to make. A person can romanticize Thailand just as easily as, you once romanticized going home. You start believing that the moment you land at the airport in Bangkok, everything will feel the way it did 10 years ago. But Thailand's changed too. Prices have changed, rules have changed. Relationships have changed, tourist areas have changed. The person yourself, you may be older, less healthy, and less financially secure. Coming back because you missed something is understandable. Coming back because you believe you can step into the past is another matter. Thailand's not waiting there exactly as you left it. I guarantee it changes frequently. Some people realize they left the wrong thing. A lot of people say they left Thailand when what they really left was a specific problem. Maybe their relationship had become unhealthy. Maybe they bought property or entered a business deal without understanding what they were getting themselves into. Maybe they were spending money faster than they could be replaced. Maybe they had no purpose and became bored. Their visa situation could become difficult, or they surrounded themselves with the wrong people. Those are real reasons to live. But after some time, away, they may recognize that the problem was not Thailand itself. A failed relationship does not mean every relationship in Thailand will fail. A dishonest person does not represent the whole country, you guys. A bad investment, doesn't mean that nobody can manage money here, or running out of cash does not prove Thailand is unaffordable if you were living like a tourist every day. Sometimes a person leaves angry because they're embarrassed. You may not want to admit that you ignored warnings, or you were too trusting. You spent too much money, or you built your life around somebody you didn't even hardly know. It's easier to say Thailand is a scam than to say I made some very damn poor decisions. And then after the anger cools down, you may see that more clearly. This doesn't mean you should return immediately, but it does mean it can make a big difference in your decision based on reality other than your own pride. Second time around can be the better time around. Some people are much happier when they return because they no longer expect Thailand to solve their life's problems. The first time they may have arrived with a suitcase and a dream. The second time they arrive with a budget, health insurance, a proper visa, and a much better understanding of what they're getting themselves into. They rent instead of buying. They keep their own money under their control. They understand that every disagreement with a Thai wife or girlfriend is not necessarily a cultural conspiracy. Sometimes two married people are simply disagreeing or not communicating correctly. They stop trying to impress people, and they're not trying to become the bank for an entire village. They tend to choose a location that fits the life they actually want, rather than a location that looked exciting during a 2-week vacation. They build something to do. That may be gardening, travel, exercise, or small online business, volunteering, video work, whatever it may be. Something simply helping with family life. The activity itself is less important than having a purpose. Most importantly, stop expecting every day in Thailand to feel like a holiday. Ordinary life arrives everywhere in the world. There's going to be bills, repairs, frustrations, health concerns. The person who accepts that has a much better chance of building a stable life here. You're not returning to chase a fantasy. You're returning with your eyes open to what life really is and realizing life happens no matter where you are in the world. You still have those that come back and have learned nothing. There's those people who return and repeat the exact same pattern. They meet someone immediately. They start spending money immediately. They make promises before they understand the situation. They buy a house, car, land, or business before they've lived here long enough to know whether they even like the place. They believe the new relationship is completely different from the old one because this person tells them what they want to hear. You can be gaslighted here. They may return with some emotional needs, the same poor judgment, and the same belief that this time Thailand's going to finally make them happen. A year later, they're angry again and they're buying plane tickets. Thailand gave them a second chance, but they came back as the same person who left. Changing countries does not automatically fix problems, loneliness, insecurity, addiction, or just bad habits, or poor judgment. You bring yourself with you. That may be the most important thing anybody needs to understand before coming back. Take care of yourself and do your own due diligence. Hey, I understand the pull. I really do. I understand why people come back because I know what my life here means to me. Thailand's not perfect. Our life is not perfect. T and I deal with family responsibilities, debt, immigration, maintenance on property, business decision, all the ordinary thing that married couples deal with. But we also have a life here. We have a farm, a resort, the restaurant, family, friends, and plans. We can ride through Asan, visit the Mekong, go to Wahin, sit outside in the evening and enjoy the place that we've built. I still value America and my home there. I have home, property, memories, friends, and opportunities there. I don't believe a person has to hate America to enjoy Thailand, and I don't believe Thailand has to be perfect for it to be the right place for part of my life. This is where I think some people get confused. They believe they must declare one country good and the other one bad. And, life's just not that simple. A person may leave Thailand for a valid reason and still miss it. You may return home and appreciate what, your home country offers, while also realizing that the life he wants is somewhere else. It's not hypocrisy. It's learning what matters to you and what you value the most in life. Here's some of the questions I think you ought to ask yourself before coming back. Before you buy another ticket to Thailand, you should ask yourself and be honest with this. What's changed since I left? Did you fix any financial problems, build a realistic budget? Did you improve your health? Do you understand what went wrong in any past relationships? Do you have a proper visa plan? Do you have something meaningful you want to do here? Have you accepted that Thailand is a real country and not a retirement amusement park? Or are you simply lonely, bored, cold, and remembering only the good parts? Coming back can definitely be the right decision for you. For some people, it may be one of the best decisions they ever make in their life, but it needs to be a decision, not an emotional reaction to a bad winter or a few lonely months. The people who succeed when they return to Thailand usually don't expect Thailand to become different. They understand that they need to be different to fit into Thailand and how to enjoy it to have a better quality of life. So to answer the question at the beginning of the video, why do they come back? They miss the warmth, the food, the freedom, the affordability, and the activity around them. They miss relationships, community, and feeling like they still have a place in this big world. But more than anything, many of them miss the life they had here and the person they were while they were living it here. Some return wiser and build a better life. Others return and repeat the same mistakes until they're angry enough to leave again and be at that airport with a ticket. The difference is not whether Thailand changed. The difference is whether the person changed. For the Thailand Reality Guide, the Thailand Cost Calculator, the complete bundle, or information about a one-on-one consultation, visit ricksadventurestv.com. And remember, leaving Thailand does always mean coming here was a mistake. Sometimes a person has to leave before he understands what he actually had. This is Rick. I'm signing off, guys. Be safe, be happy, be healthy.